As Florida State fans know, Wake has had a really good football team with Sam Hartman at quarterback and with one of the underrated coaches in college football, Dave Clawson, on the sideline, having defeated the Noles 3 consecutive years. But Wake has not had an elite football team for quite some time, or a long time, or never really. They only have one top 5 win in its history, and that was in 1944 against Tennessee. Since then, they've lost 44 consecutive games against top 5 teams. Bad news for Wake Forest is that Florida State came into Winston-Salem today as a top 5 team, and this is definitely not 1944. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, breaking down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis because of your contribution. Appreciate you being here. Let's get right to it. Florida State dominates Wake 41-16. Right out of the gate, Kalen Carlson of Wake dropped an interception on the first drive of the game. Can't do that when you're trying to pull off an upset because Florida State marches 6 plays, 75 yards for a touchdown. The most impressive play on the drive was a Jordan Travis scramble when he was boxed in between the tackles. He escaped, he got outside, he eluded some pass rushers and threw across his body on a dime to Kyle Morlock for a key first down, 13-yard gain. Jordan Travis scored his 91st touchdown. He is responsible for more touchdowns than anybody in Florida State history. Let that sink in. Since Bobby Bowden built this program, basically, I know they had a football program for quite some time, but Bobby Bowden built the elite portion of this football history back in the late 70s. Nobody has scored 91 touchdowns, and the Noles led it 7-0. Santino Marucci is the quarterback who came in as a third stringer last week against Pitt and pulled out a victory 27-21 against the Panthers and notched a win for Wake. And Dave Clawson had said this week that Marucci had his day. If he does nothing else, never accomplishes anything else as a college football player, he's got the Pitt game. Well, he didn't have this game because he was not given the opportunity. Mitch Griffiths back healthy and given the start despite not generating much offense while he's in the ball game for Wake. Florida State came in as the number 1 scoring offense in the conference. Wake last in scoring. This is not Sam Hartman's Wake Forest team. Wake had a 3rd and 7. They had the opportunity after they had picked up a couple first downs, and then it was just a team meeting in the backfield for Florida State. Cannot credit anybody with a sack. I'm sure somebody was, but basically the entire defensive line threw Griffiths to the ground. Deshaun Jones had a tackle for loss. He's a good player, made some nice plays for Wake Forest. He's a really good player. And the next time Wake got the ball, Griffiths threw a beautiful deep shot. Not his forte, but on this play, beautiful bomb that should have been completed, but the wide receiver dropped the ball. Griffiths on the day, 6 for 16 passing, 82 yards for Wake. Florida State forced Wake to punt. No. Wake forced Florida State to punt. Excellent punt by Mastromino and excellent punt coverage by Florida State down the ball at the 1-yard line. Sometime in the first quarter, I was keeping track, and Florida State led Wake in yardage 105-11. This was not a game. Although Wake had its moments, we will get to those. Jared Verse left the game at one point. There was an issue with his eye, apparently. He was motioning in such a sense that there might have been an issue, something in his eye. Don't think he was out for very long because he certainly made his impact later with 3 tackles and 2 sacks for one of the best in the game at that position, Jared Verse. Malik Mustafa is a really good player for Wake. He had 3 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. He impressed me on a few plays, making some plays behind the line of scrimmage. Florida State in the red zone is one of the best in the nation. Offense or defense, either one. Both of them, Florida State, one of the best in the nation. Number 5 coming into this game in scoring offense in the red zone. Number 12 in defense, limiting red zone scoring. They're the only team in the nation in the top 12 in both categories. Wake Forest finally gets something going. They go 7 plays, 75 yards. Justice Ellison with a beautifully blocked 51-yard run right off tackle as he took it for 51. And then Griffiths made an excellent throw down to the 2-yard line to Taylor Morin, which set up the touchdown to make it 10-7. So Wake had a little life at this point, despite being outplayed miserably early. They got back in the ballgame at 10-7. Keon Coleman, though, with a reception in the flat after Florida State capped off a 75-yard drive. Keon Coleman in the flat juked a defender, and he's such a big body. The second defender tried to take a shot at him. Not going to happen. Touchdown from 29 yards, 17-7. Then we got to see for about 3 or 4 consecutive drives the Florida State offense in full gear. Trey Benson with an 80-yard touchdown reception and run. Then Keon Coleman again, making his case for best wide receiver in the country. 14-yard catch, caps off a 5-play, 66-yard drive, and just like that, Florida State in control, dominating out front in a rout, 34-7 at halftime. FSU had not given up a point in the second half since the Clemson game. Fabian Levette most famously made a comment at halftime after Florida State trailed Duke to say, we are not giving up a point in the second half of this game. And guess what? Florida State went out and controlled the game and flew right by Duke with a 21-0 scoring streak in the second half. Now, Duke could have kicked a field goal, but point known and taken into account here that Florida State, once they get their heads together on defense, are awfully tough. But against Wake Forest came out in the second half and played some decent football. Those first couple drives, 11 plays, 69 yards for a field goal. Now, it was mentioned by the broadcast team, since Wake was down 34-7 and settled for a field goal, that they're probably just trying to keep things somewhat respectable, play the game out. But they had a shot in a sense, if you look at scoring, because they marched it down the field, kicked the field goal, maybe should have gone for the touchdown, 34-10. Next time they get the ball, this time they go 10 plays for 80 yards. Kind of strange that the first time they kicked the field goal, the second time they bypass the extra point, go for 2, do not get it. It's 34-16. So they had a chance to possibly get within 2 scores there and did not. So they settled for the field goal, get the touchdown, and at this point, Wake is outplaying Florida State after being outgained in the first half, 351-75 in the third quarter. Wake outgained Florida State 123-49, but they were just woefully behind, and then Florida State kicked it back into gear. Jordan Travis became the first Florida State player in 20 years to account for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in one half. When I hear stats and facts and trends like that, I would love to know who's the last player. They give you the fact, it's a good one, but I want to know 20 years ago, who was the last Seminole to do that? Fitzgerald missed a field goal. He hooked it off, clanked it off the left upright, so it's still 34-10 at that point. That was before the Wake touchdown. At one point, the Florida State defense was dominant to this point. They had 6 sacks of Mitch Griffiths, and he had 5 completions. So it was pretty rough going for Wake on offense, and Florida State just basically cruised from there. My other favorite play of the day in regards to watching Jordan Travis throw is he had a beautiful throw right over the shoulder between 2 defenders to Kyle Morlock on a play that led to a touchdown. And Florida State wins this game easily, 41-16. Now for Wake, let's consider the Sam Hartman, Wake, and now the aftermath. Under Sam Hartman, Wake averaged 35 points per game, 450 yards per game. Under the quarterback since then, obviously Hartman was there last year, it's 22 points per game, and that went down after the Florida State game, and like half the yardage, a little bit more than half the yardage. So just a different deal under Sam Hartman, and Florida State fans know all about that. All right, FSU in good shape now. 8-0, 5-0 in the ACC. They've got a date against Florida, of course, as their last non-conference game. But before that, Florida State taking on Pitt, traveling to Pitt November 4th. And this was a game that many of us eyed before the season as a possible trip-up game for Florida State against what has been a good Pitt team. They went 9-4, won a bowl game against UCLA last year, but they're awful. They gave up 58 points, were destroyed by Notre Dame today. Wake's just trying to get to a bowl game. They dropped to 1-4 in the ACC. Of course, they're not a factor there. They are 4-4 overall, and they've got a date against Duke coming up, and Duke was miserable on offense on this day against Louisville without Riley Leonard. So your thoughts about Florida State, of course, as they march on to the ACC championship game. No one in their way, it appears. They will easily make it to the championship game. Who will they play? There's so many teams in play. Louisville with a huge win today. North Carolina leading Georgia Tech right now as well. Your thoughts down below. Always love to hear from you. Please join us soon. And remember, we've got a Florida State live show that we present to you now for like 240 consecutive weeks on the Florida State channel every Wednesday, 5 Eastern, 6 Eastern on Wednesday on the Florida State channel, right here at the Voice of College Football.